Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Young Ruff and I'm joined by Lachlan Teely.
On episode 172, Disney makes some big moves and Spike Lee is doing another remake. Here we go.
Boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I watched Bob Marley One Love and The Greatest Night in Pop, and Lachlan had another week of gaming that he'll tell us about.
Finally, this week, you and I caught a great piece of American fiction called American Fiction. That's right, we caught up with another Oscar contender. It's nominated for 5 Oscars. Score, picture? I think it's in picture as well. Lead, supporting, and no, this is the last one. I'm not going to get it. Writing, original screenplay.
Adapted.
Adapted screenplay, because it's adapted. Yeah, we'll get into that. But we'll see whether or not it should be nominated for all of those.
We'll get into that full-on spoiler discussion. So let's adapt that intro. I don't know, put it on the screen. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there.
Which actually,
did you
this
get
is
me a
gonna
hat
be
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
All right, welcome back, Lachlan.
Hello.
I thought accordingly, I dressed as white as I can today because we're talking about a black story. So, we got to stick out even more.
Right.
2 white guys talking about this because we have so much to say about it and such great input.
Of course.
But I think it's a great film, something really interesting to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that later in the show. Before we get into that, there's a couple of news items that I would want to go over. First up, 2 trailers that came out this week that are notable. Each of them being a further down, I guess, outing in a franchise. Yes, one of them being a prequel of A Quiet Place called Day One. We get a June 28th for release date for that one. Ton of action. It also sets it up for the casual moviegoers who aren't maybe familiar to, what are we doing in this universe again? We need to see John Krasinski at the start, and then they come back to like Day One. Because that wasn't apparent enough in the title when it says Day One, apparently. Audiences are fucking stupid. But Lachlan, what did you make of this first trailer?
I'm actually keen for it. I honestly believe that they kind of did what they had to do with the original story. There was not much more you could really do with the family. I mean, you can always just keep making sequels. You could make a prequel with it, but I'm kind of glad that they're not following the same family. They're doing a different story, and that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
I am all for it because I really enjoy A Quiet Place. I think it's fantastic. I think there are elements I don't like to the series, but I think overall it's a strong horror movie. And I think the same joke as always, going to go see it in cinemas and someone's chewing on their popcorn and you have to be quiet. It will make for another great little couple months of that joke coming back into the popularity of the general public. But yeah, no, I'm excited, especially because
the director.
Am I excited for the director? Who's directing?
It's Michael Sarnowski, who did Pig with Nicolas Cage. Yeah. It's another one of these, you loved Minari, right? And this year we're getting am I mixing it up? No, you loved After Yang. I liked Minari a bit more than you did. Here we go, starting off racist. Getting right straight into it. He's doing, Lee Isaac Chung is doing the sequel to Twisters this year. Another action apocalyptic
great name, Twisters.
Exactly.
Aliens. Big dollar sign.
Exactly, the dollar mark. Yeah, that's the one. But you really liked Pig. I think you gave it 4 stars if I remember correctly. I mean, we both were really positive on it. This is a totally different realm, right? We see a lot of action. Usually in A Quiet Place, it was one of these films where the less we see of the monster, the more terrifying it is. But we've seen the monster now, especially in the sequel, way more, and it's been thought that a prequel where it's the front and center of the action does kind of make sense. It did have me a bit worried though, because it, like, the computer generated stuff, it was like leaning, obviously it has to do that, but it was leaning really heavily into that. And I don't know if I loved the look of it, but I'm also quite eager to give it a try. Some good action coming up early in the year.
Biggest problems with A Quiet Place is the fact that
it's so
literally
fucking
shows
quiet.
you the monster 20 seconds into the film starting.
Yeah.
And it takes away that mystery, the mystery of what's the monster, what does it look like? Because I love that. I guess it's Lovecraftian in the way that you can never really picture the monster. It's about what your
more
imagination
terrifying in your mind, right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And that's when like I enjoyed A Quiet Place, but that's when the film transitioned from horror into more thriller for me, and that was straight away because I was never scared of what the monster was. I just knew what the monster was, and it's not really that scary anymore. So transitioning it into more of a thriller and action, which I guess Quiet Place 2 did that. Seeing day one, it definitely does look more actiony. It definitely is going to be more thrillery, in my opinion. I think it's going to be less horror, but that's, I think, playing into its strengths now because everyone knows what these monsters look like. They know how they work. You can't really have a horror when you know how the alien works. And it's kind of like the same with Alien, right? You can't really do the horror anymore, which is why I get less and less afraid of what the alien is in the subsequent sequels that have come out, especially the most recent ones, where I think they're not so much horror movies. They're more not like a visual horror, I guess. It's like psychological, like what they do to you. The horror stuff, the body horror stuff in the recent ones have been great, but the actual mental side of it is where they're kind of leaning onto.
Yeah, a couple of them, I mean, the most recent ones have also kind of leaned into like the robot AI thing, which the first one already had, but it feels like it's a bigger focus in the last couple of like Ridley Scott alien films. But this one also has like a really sweet cast, like Lupita Nyong'o, I think hasn't done something in a while. I think she was like really briefly in Black Panther Part 2, and has done a couple of other things, but she's back as like a lead, and I mean, she can carry like a movie on her shoulders easily. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we got pretty good cast overall. I'm looking forward to this, and horror franchises. I mean, like there's no real harm done with most of these, in my opinion. Even if they're just for a quick buck, because you so easily can discredit them if they're bad. And this franchise hasn't had like an actual like bad movie so far, I'd say. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to what it has to offer. Gotta go fast and gotta collect those rings, or I guess if in Knuckles' case, spoken by Idris Elba, which by the way also gets a name drop in American Fiction a couple of times. Knuckles, the 6-episode series, is gonna premiere over on Paramount Plus. That's a streaming service. This definitely does exist, and I've never been on, but I think it does exist and people do have it and pay for it. On April 26th is when that comes out. And then the third film, which I don't think we have a trailer for yet. Maybe we do. I don't really care. Comes out on December 20th later this year. Lachlan, what did you make of the first trailer for Knuckles?
Well, I haven't seen Sonic 2, so I guess I have to catch up on that first. It seems like
I forget what his role is in that, to be honest. I don't know if it was a big part of it.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Cool.
It might have been just a cameo at the end, even. I don't remember, but like, you shouldn't go off by thing. You should definitely go see Sonic 2.
Okay. Yeah?
It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
Okay, sure.
Great. But, I don't know. What do you make of it?
You said it just before. No harm done if it's bad. You can kind of just forget about it. I really enjoy them using a different medium to tell a story. Like, they decided not to do a Knuckles movie. They decided to do a Knuckles TV show. So either this story isn't big enough for them to make a movie out of it, and they don't want to invest millions of dollars into a movie, and they just want to make it into a TV show. But I enjoy the sort of... And like my favorite example is probably like a pretty obvious one, but like Star Wars. Like even though I don't like some of these new Star Wars movies that have come out, I really appreciate that I don't have to sit down and watch a 3-hour movie every time I want to watch a piece of Star Wars content. I can watch Star Wars as like a 2.5 hour film. I can watch Star Wars as a 25-minute, 20-minute animated movie, or I can go watch like an hour-long TV show, maybe a couple of them. I can watch them in different states, and I think that's cool because then I can absorb the content that I want to watch in the time frame that I have.
Yeah, different options for different folks. I mean, we're gonna talk about the Disney thing a bit later, but that's where like a series is turned into. Like, I think Disney doesn't have a great track record with the MCU stuff. I think with Star Wars, they're doing a bit better when it comes to which ones are gonna be movies and series. But even that, they're kind of blending into like movies in, I think, 2026 is when that new film. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do wanna. After there's a separate thing we talk about the Disney investor call, but I don't know, I feel like this tone of having a human companion to play off the over the top nature of one of these characters is like that gets stale to me before it even has made its first joke, and I can't see myself really enjoying it, but I'm probably not the target audience. I don't think I've ever, like, I definitely haven't finished a Sonic game, and I don't really have played, like, a proper 2D or 3D Sonic game, apart from, like, the racing ones that they have. I think.
The other problem is that with having a human character there the entire time, it does bring to obvious light some of the weaker CGI elements, and I think that Sonic, for the most part, in the original, was pretty good. I still won't put it to the same levels as like a collaboration of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I think that's probably one of the best examples of a human live action with an animated element to it, and they made that work really well. And that was years ago, and we're still yet to find a movie that can kind of get that same, still feel comfortable with an animated movie companion. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
Space Jam,
fuck off with your Space Jam. Fuck off with your Space Jam. Fuck off. But no, but like
Acme and
Knuckles doesn't look good
or
in
whatever
this.
that was called.
Knuckles looks so animated in this. He looks terrible. And it's like, I get he's animated, he's from a different universe, and that makes sense, but like, he looks so clearly CGI. Like, at least make the lighting look good. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something off about this whole thing that I don't know. I can't see this being decent. But like maybe the third Sonic film is entertaining, and I think Paramount is really like in a similar position to Disney, not as desperate as they are, and like doesn't have as many opportunities in IP, but they definitely have to like make more and more of this all work, because I mean, Top Gun has been a while, and streaming services are bleeding money. Which let's move on over to the Disney investor call, because there's one thing about like profitability that they also talked about in the investor call. Disney had their first quarterly investors call with a bunch of announcements that came out. I listened in. It was like an hour-long recording, and it made me want to throw up like 2 minutes in, because the way that they talk is so annoying. Like, we are bringing like the best possible product to our people. And they say every 15...
Yes, they all, it's like,
all do terrible Mickey Mouse impressions.
It's presented by Mickey Mouse.
Is under fair use, which means fair use is they can do voices in the investors call, and they can't be stopped. But no, every 15 seconds they say something like, it's going to be good for the investors on like the dividends that they get paid out. And it's also like a unique, great thing that they bring to the users. And they repeat that like every 15 seconds with every single thing they say. And it made me want to shoot myself. It was so painful to listen to. But it did have a couple of big announcements. The biggest one that they also led the investor call with is that Moana, in some places, like here in Switzerland, for me, it's called Wayana. I don't know why the fuck it's a different name. It's so odd. But that one is getting a sequel. That was initially I think probably a 6th episode, because all of the Disney Plus shows that are like stretched to a TV show, but are actually kind of a movie narratively, are like about that length. But that's getting a sequel that's coming out this year. And it wasn't announced yet. It's Comes out
Wow.
November 28th. And currently has the same date as Wicked 2. So I feel like either of those are going to move. Because, Wicked's got to be Disney. I don't know. Maybe it's Warner Brothers. But I also don't care, man. Not a sequel to another sequel. They're fighting it out. This is being reworked into a movie. There was also like the live action thing, right, that they were working on. That apparently has been postponed a bit. But I think The Rock tweeted or X'd or whatever. Or gave in an interview statement that they found the actress to play Moana. I haven't really announced yet who that is. Obviously, he's gonna return, and then Lin-Manuel Miranda is gonna write the whole music. The director who did the, I guess, Hamilton recording from stage to Disney Plus is gonna direct. That's all the stuff that I have on that movie. But it seems like they moved that back. Priority number one is getting butts and seats for Moana. And then on Disney Plus, they got the exclusive streaming rights for the huge box office surprise of last year with Taylor Swift's Eras tour. That's gonna have 5 exclusive songs that are only gonna be on the digital version on Disney Plus. And I mean, if you've seen recent the interest that has spiked for American football over the last couple of months. Just from her dating and attending, dating a player and attending the games, I feel like this is gonna have another big spike for Disney, which are also aiming to have their first actual profit that the streaming service brings back by the end of the year, which is kind of a recurring thing with these streaming services. There's a ton of money that they spend on it, and now we see kind of a backpedaling happening in a couple of places because it's ultimately not that profitable if you just cut out the theatrical revenue that you can have. You can see it with the re-releases of free Pixar films that were straight to Disney Plus without a surcharge over the last couple of years that are now getting a theatrical release with Soul Turning Red and Luca. Mandalorian and Grogu is set to come out in 2026. We'll believe it when we see it. And, the other biggest news that I don't know why I went over this. This is pretty big. So Disney bought a huge stake in, well, I guess it's only a partial stake because Epic Games is that, immensely popular, of $1.5 billion of stock that they buy in Epic Games. And they're going to collaborate on gaming ventures, media ventures, kind of a crossover. And I also saw that Fantastic Four are rumored to come to Fortnite as well as One Piece, which is unrelated to Disney, but that's happening, and that's very cool.
And unrelated, I
pops up
think
in
Pedro
Disney.
Pascal got officially casted, listed as Reed Richards. As
I
a
think
side
so as
piece.
well. I read that too. He can be my side piece. But anyway.
Ayo.
I got sidetracked. But yeah, they are venturing into that. I think what is really interesting is that there's these big media conglomerates that focus maybe on one thing with Disney that has mainly done animation, movies, and TV, and is now branching into gaming more succinctly and not just as an afterthought. And other big companies like Lego, for example, have branched into the movie sphere a bit more. And I mean, there's what's his name, Pharrell Williams, the happy guy. He's very happy because he's happy. He's making a movie about his life that is an animated Lego film, which is why? I guess. So you can see them kind of battling it out as these multi-branched media conglomerates that aren't just doing products, but they tie it in with games and maybe more movies in the future. And it's an interesting development because we've for a long time said that game adaptations might be the future when comic books are maybe a bit of in a slow, kind of getting slow at the moment and stale because it does get repetitive and formulaic, and maybe gaming is the next thing, but maybe it's a mix of everything. But yeah, that's that, and then a couple smaller stuff. Well, it's actually pretty big, but ESPN is gonna be exclusively, I think, a tie-in with Disney Plus, and then in 2025 it will be its own streaming service, which I think brings us back to this is really attractive to people outside of the they don't want to spend money on cable, but this is just the modern digital version of cable. It's
Yeah.
dumb, but that's what's happening. But yeah, they're also cracking down on password sharing this summer. I feel like they've already started doing that, but maybe I've just imagined that. But hey, my Disney Plus subscription is gonna expire in March, and I'm not gonna renew because I feel like it's just a bad service in my opinion.
Damn, it looks like I have to get a new person to leech off of.
Well, you were my thing, and then for no apparent reason whatsoever, you just like got your own. And I always said, like, why did you do that? We could have.
I got my own so I could share it with my family. There you go. What a nice guy, right?
I'm sorry.
What a nice guy.
Two providers, one Discord call.
Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is on Disney Plus, and Tanika loves it. At the time, there was plenty of content to watch on there, and now the only reason I have it is for Grey's Anatomy. So.
And the bear.
And the bear. Yeah. Which
by the way, I think starts filming right soon.
I thought it was out in June.
Done film? Yeah, that's another thing. There's a ton of announcements for like second seasons, like Abbott Elementary on ABC has been renewed. Second season of Percy Jackson is coming. Ton of that stuff. Yeah, Star Wars Acolyte is set to premiere this summer as well, which is exciting. And I think Andor season 2 has also just wrapped filming like this week. So yeah, exciting stuff. And overall, what do you think about like this investor call as a deeply invested
investor? Yeah, man. As a disclaimer, I'm not an investor in Disney Plus. This is not financial advice.
He's holding back his Mickey Mouse voice because he's so invested.
Disney needs to do a lot to get profitable. They're losing a fuck ton of money on Disney Plus. Bob Iger is back in, and he's back in so that he can make Disney profitable once more. But look, to interject, what Iger has always done in his years at Disney is just like, how do we have success? Buy. Yeah. And he just buys a big thing. And he does that again. Buy a big thing with Epic Games. And yeah. I remember reading a lot of articles of him apparently wanting to sell to Apple, which I always found an interesting one. Just sell Disney to Apple. And I'm just like, that's a ridiculous idea to just sell it to a different company to make some money. But there's a lot in this. I was reading the conference call remarks while you were talking, and it's cool because they obviously are looking for. Hang on a second. In fact, among millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, is Gen Alpha the new one?
Yeah. Gen Alpha is, I think, like anyone under like 14.
That's disgusting. Check. That's a terrible way of naming. Anyway,
under 14.
They talk about how they're looking at expanding, and I think Disney has not really taken an investment and taken time to go into the gaming space, and I think that would be super interesting for them to do. And obviously, instead of just forking out money and possibly losing more, let's ride on the success of Fortnite, which doesn't seem to want to fucking die. And it just keeps reinventing itself. And that's also I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that that's very interesting. Fortnite has evolved over the years to become something completely different. And now you're getting investments from Disney. And they've also had like concerts from like a bunch of successful artists in Epic, in Fortnite as well. And that's really cool. So Disney is trying to test the waters a little bit, see what would happen, and if they can, really make some money from the gaming space. But I'm just excited to see that I can see a bunch of upcoming movies slated for 2025, 2024. But I could probably see that they're going to be pushed back anyway. Knowing that,
why would you say that?
Look, there's a Star Wars movie coming out. Probably not. Probably going to be delayed. But it's cool. It's cool, I guess. I'm excited to see Disney hopefully rise back up and not be such a crappy service. And maybe I won't cancel my subscription.
I will, but
and
maybe
then you leech off me.
Yes, exactly. I think Disney has a lot to do this year, and I feel like they are not taking as many chances this year. With just lesser movies out. Hopefully cutting down on their expenses, which I think is smart. So hopefully we get good products out of it, although I'm like not entirely sure how well a series like Moana that's now turned into a movie is going to turn out, because it seems like a safe bet. What I didn't say is that apart from Encanto, Moana has been like the most streamed thing on Disney Plus for like years. It's just going gangbusters. Like it's just doing crazy numbers. So this feels like the safest bet for them to do a series like for the streaming stuff, but also they already got all of those people, right, that are watching Moana over and over again. So I get the strategy of putting it into theaters and making money off of that property, but I don't know how well it's doing if it's a bad film or like if the quality is subpar, because I feel like Moana is like a really great original Disney film. It was one of the, like from memory, I
Recent
think
memory.
Like yeah, the most solid one I can think of. That's like obviously not Pixar, right? There's a couple of good ones from Pixar, like Coco and Soul in the last couple of years, and it's been a while since Moana came out. That's all the stuff with Disney. The Oscars have some news apart from the nominations that we went over a couple of weeks ago. They're currently very busy, hosting probably heaps of parties to get the voting going, get some votes in. But there was an announcement of a new category that is getting added to the Academy Awards in 2026. So for the movies of 2025 in the 2026 ceremony, we are getting a casting director category, and it's not surprising. I did like last year a series on Best Picture winners, and I did like a heaps of I have so much data that I studied up on that, and then I quit like 20 or 15 movies in. I do want to finish that at some point because I did all the research, but there was at one point a category for casting directors, and I think they got rid of it, if I remember it correctly. Maybe I'm mixing it up now because it's been a while, because I feel like it has been around and they got rid of it again. But obviously, like each time announcements are made from the Oscars, the question comes up, like, why do we not have a stunts category yet? And I mean, we've talked about this quite extensively already months and months ago. It always comes up again when we talk about like big action that's really well done. And I think it's overdue. Hopefully they can get that sorted. It would be great if they also could tie it in that ceremony. Maybe before 2030 would be great if they can get it done. But yeah, what do you think about casting directors here? I think they deserve the spotlight, but there's a lot of other categories, right, and other branches that would deserve it as well.
I guess it's going to be. There's plenty. I guess it's more of like a, ensemble award. Like, man, you did such a great job casting these people in this film. It's not so much that they're a great casting director, because there's a lot of elements that go into casting somebody, but it's probably more like a, we're gonna highlight casting directors because they did such a great job getting this entire ensemble together to be in this film, and I think that's an interesting category to have. But I agree, there probably is better. Like, why not just have best ensemble? Why not just have best ensemble? Why not have a bunch of other categories? But then you got to realize that they don't really do the categories all the time. They they don't have the same amount of time for every category. They really care about like 7 of them, and the rest can go fuck themselves apparently. So
exactly, and that's the issue with the presentation of it all. Dan Murrell actually had a video come out this week where he did like a thing on how he would run the Oscars. Made some suggestions, and especially for the broadcast, I like point to point agree with him. I think they are failing to give context to why you should award stuff by not having the proper material ready. Obviously, with acting, we usually, or sometimes we didn't, but we get the clips of like a big Oscar scene, I guess. But like that's also hard to quantify in one single scene. But with like the VFX, sometimes we got like the VFX breakdown, and you get a showcase, a quick glimpse into that for people just tuning into the show. It's so boring if it's just like a bunch of names listed, and you basically want to get to the parts where you can obviously see the influence. Like, you like the director, so that you want to see that directing thing. Best picture is interesting. All of the acting categories. what else do you care about if you don't show the work that goes into production design or costume design? Or maybe the hair and makeup is another thing that's really apparent when it's big, but then maybe show it on the smaller things so it makes it more worthwhile to nominate the more subtler things, like in Priscilla, right? We didn't get like a makeup nomination for that one, and I think it was excellent, the hair and makeup stuff, but it was more subtle, and unless it's big like in Maestro, it doesn't really get nominated. And I think that's on the Academy of not making it appealing enough to well, it's also the branches, I guess, not voting for it, but then also in the telecast get more people excited about it. And the big discrepancy between trying to get people back into being interested in the Oscars when these people are never gonna return unless Will Smith slaps another guy. They just don't care about it. And even then, they're not gonna watch it. They're gonna watch it on Twitter. So you gotta cater more to the actual people who like movies. And they've just kind of feels like backstabbed cinephiles and people who actually care time and time again by saying, oh, look at these movies no one cares about. It's like, fuck you, I'm actually here. I do care about them. I don't really care about how many awards it gets, but I do appreciate that we are talking about these films. I think the Oscars have more work to do than Disney, which might be a big statement, but like they are like doing a lot of things really wrong. But yeah, speaking of doing things wrong, Spike Lee is yet again, dipping his toes into the Asian market of adapting not from South Korea this time, but from Japan, a classic from the 60s, from Akira Kurosawa, High and Low, together with Denzel Washington in front of the camera, and co-produced by A24 and Apple. And yeah, I actually haven't seen Oldboy. I just know, not Spike Lee's version. I've seen the original Oldboy. I've avoided Spike Lee's version just by the infamous horribleness of its reputation. And Lachlan, you've seen it. Are you confident that Spike Lee can do a better adaptation of this film that you haven't seen, right? You haven't seen High and Low, so it's a bit harder for you to tell.
I haven't seen High and Low, so I don't really want to comment on whether or not he can adapt it. What was the last thing Spike Lee did?
It wasn't Black Klansman, right?
I'm sure he did something else between. And I feel like he's been successful enough. Yeah, Five Bloods is definitely going to be the most recent one. He's done...
Yeah. Well, he did a portrait on Chadwick Boseman, if I remember correctly, but that was just a doc. Yeah, he's done a couple of like short video stuff, series, but his like main big movie was back in 2020, and he has four upcoming movies.
Yeah. Look, I don't think he needs to do the one for you, one for me mentality anymore. I feel like he's established himself enough. He's successful enough that he doesn't need to do that, especially with the success of Black Klansman more recently. And The Five Bloods was also pretty successful for Netflix as well. It was one of those like really early on, like, oh man, that's another director on Netflix, like straight to Netflix release. That's really interesting. So I don't think he needs to do this sort of, I'll make this remake for you. Let me just click on High and Low. But it's on here.
It's like also currently we're in the phase of Apple spending a lot of money on getting the big names onto the service, and they've spent like a couple times 200 million on stuff that is never gonna make them money back. They've had another like pretty big flop with Argyle. Killers of the Flower Moon did well, but not well enough to justify costing 200 million. Napoleon also did better than Killers of the Flower Moon money-wise, but is also not gonna even gross 200 million. And also was at that steep price. And Masters of the Air, I assume the series that they're doing now, also costs them a shit ton of money, and is obviously just on streaming for them.
I think Apple's playing a long game.
You know?
I think Apple's playing the long game. They're investing in this in a lot of filmmakers to bring them to the platform, and I think they'll eventually get a return. But don't you
think they're in the same position as Netflix, where like they did do that, but ultimately when Netflix really shines, because they did go away from just spending outrageous amount of like blank check money on directors, they've gone back to, hey, if we are more of the licensing place, that's where people are. I don't know if they subscribe just for the original content alone and for the names. Do you see them like turning that around?
I think that if Apple establishes themselves as, we'll throw money at you and we won't do any sort of creative control, that'd be interesting. And I think that's what they've done. Yep. They're throwing money at directors, being like, we don't want anything to do with telling you how to make this movie. You just go ahead and make this movie. Partnering up with A24 as well is also an interesting one, because they definitely won't be like, hey, you should make it this way. So when I was concerned that Spike Lee was making a one for them film, no, he's actually probably, hey, I heard you guys want to do a High and Low remake. Let me do it. But let me do it on my own terms. Because he's a good director. He knows what he does. He knows how to make a great film. He's really good directing people. And that is, from what I know of High and Low, one of the most important parts is the actual characters themselves, the actual conversations, the dialogue.
Well, the staging is also incredibly, like, that's the most iconic parts of it. Like, you could dissect the intricacies of how the blocking and staging works together, which, for those who don't know, blocking is where you put your actors, and all of the staging is the part where the camera goes and where it moves and all of that. There's like countless breakdowns of how high and low really sets that stuff up. And Spike Lee is a great visual storyteller paired with Denzel. I think that's the best possible outcome for this. And High and Low is also a story that you can adapt in a different setting. It does work. But yeah, I like more than Old Boy. Yeah, definitely. So I feel like it's gonna clear like not being as bad as it. But Spike Lee also has had like big misses, not recently, at least in his feature films. So hopefully he's on a hot streak and it's gonna make a film worthwhile. Then there's news on Prey.
We're still on news.
The Predator. Yes, we're still on news. We're gonna get to what we've been watching shortly. It's a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of like to me like pretty interesting stuff that it's dropped over the week. But Prey 2 is in the works. We also it's getting greenlit. I think the lead actress is set to return. I guess spoilers. She doesn't die in the first one. And there's also Dan Trachtenberg, who did the first one, who is directing another Predator movie later this year called Badlands. So yeah, we should be getting a bunch of Predator movies, I assume, next year and then the year after, hopefully. I think Prey was really solid. If they can extend in that universe, or maybe like do it in a different time period. So I don't know if like the lead actress actually returns, or are they gonna do that? I think the concept of like just dropping a Predator just any place in time is like super compelling, and yeah, made for some great action. And like, I know you're a big fan of especially Alien, but also the Predator franchise. So are you keen for both of these films? Do you have a preference between the two?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to Prey 2. I think just leaving it as its own thing is probably not a bad move. I would be keen for more individual standalone time pieces with a Predator involved. I think, I don't know when Badlands is set. I can't find it on IMDb. But I would love for there to be like a World War II, World War I trenches Predator movie. Like the horrors of a war plus a Predator involved would be sick. And I think you can play with that. Like have a Predator in different time periods throughout history. That'd be super interesting. So I would love for that to take place, more so than Prey 2, because I think leaving that as a one and done story would be great. But I
just found that Badlands seems to be set in the future, so hopes for World War One, probably infutile, if that's a word. I found it here in a Variety article. They do say it's set in the future, but we don't know anything about the plot yet. And I don't know if Prey 2 is, I guess, because that's what they're going to take from it, is like, this setting worked, let's do more of this setting. But what really worked about it, having like an authentic community in it, with like doing it in like a native language as well, and having that like cultural stuff play into this predatory force that's in there, and it just really worked super simplistically, worked well. So
yeah, no, I'd love more Predator stuff, and I'd love more Alien stuff when it eventually comes out, and hopefully it's good.
It does. Yeah, hopefully
Soon.
Romulus will be sick in the series as well. But yeah, that's it for big news week this week. So let's briefly talk about what we've been watching. Or what we've been playing in your case, Lachlan. Although Death Stranding is such an experience, like maybe it's even more akin to a movie
Yeah.
than it is.
After we chatted
gaming.
about it last week, I was really keen to jump back into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've just been doing that. I've been busy. I haven't really been watching stuff other than like Night County, True Detective.
Yeah.
But I
Finale
actually,
coming up, right?
Yeah, I think I watched
Yeah.
episode 5. Yeah. So tonight means it's the finale.
Yeah.
Fuck,
We'll talk
that's
about
coming
it
around
next
quick.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have like a short little, I think, separate video for that out sometime next week or this week.
Cool.
So but yeah, we can talk about it then. Maybe I'll give it a quick refresh as well. Cuz a reminder, I've seen it over a month ago. Just to piss you off again. But yeah, Death Stranding, been good on the replay. You do replay games quite a bit. Like, is it like a different experience than when you rewatch a film when you replay a game? Like, do you go about it differently, or like the completionist thing? Do you do on the first run or like on
I do like to
rerun?
complete games. I do like to like platinum them and whatnot. There are certain games I will do that. Some games I won't. But
Yeah.
when I don't really, honestly, I don't replay games that often. Especially because I would rather try to play a different game. But I think it's the same with movies right now. Games are super saturated. There are so many options. Same with movies. There's so many things to watch. I kind of get scared to pick something and then have to commit myself to it. So I like to just replay something. At this point, my fingers are crossed. I have a friend that's going to Japan and hopefully going to bring me back a Steamdeck. And I would be very keen to have a Steamdeck so that I can play games out and about. Because games are like my switch off when I can relax a little bit. So I would love to have that. And I've bought games recently that I plan on playing with that. So that if I do go somewhere, I don't have to just, I don't have my gaming PC with me, so I can't play those games anywhere else. Like I'm not playing Death Stranding on my phone because fuck that. But
although it is available,
it's an option for me, so I could technically do it if I really wanted to, but it's not something that I would want to do at this stage. I think that with the technology being there, that's wicked, but I don't think it's the best option. But yeah, no, I'm writing at the moment again, like screenplays. I'm getting back into that. And there's one particular story that I've got in my head that has a very similar feeling to Death Stranding. So that's why I'm playing it, so I can sort of walk around, feel inspired. I'm taking screenshots. I love photo mode. Oh man, I love photo mode in games. I love just being a cinematographer DP in video games because oh man, it's so much fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've again yet to play. I don't know if Death Stranding would be for me, but it like if the tools are there to be creative in a game, I always really appreciate that.
Oh, actually, you know what I did watch? I watched the Last of Us 2 documentary that's on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that.
I loved the first one, like the first doco they did on the first game, and I was originally someone who disliked the disliked the game originally, Last of Us Part 2. Not in a total fashion. I just didn't think the story was great. And then through subsequent replays, I realized that it's actually quite a interesting story. It's quite a brave story to tell. It's quite takes balls to tell the story the way they did, and to especially have you play a character that you despise. And it's a great piece on perspective. I still don't think it's perfect. I still think the first game is. I think the first game is almost perfect as a video game.
Yeah,
the second one doesn't do that well. in terms of being perfect in quotations, but I watched that documentary and I found it quite interesting, found it quite good, especially the writing process of getting characters to where they needed to be.
I still haven't played that one, but I like I told you last week, I did open a Backloggd account, the letterboxd for gaming.
So did I.
And you do have 5. Oh, okay. You do have 5 favorite games that you can list there, with like the middle one being your favorite of all time. And The Last of Us is in there for me among my top 5 favorites. Should maybe make a guessing game out of
mine are?
Yeah. Oh, you have your 5 set as well? Yeah.
I think I set my 5. What are your 5?
Well, you wanna guess another one of mine? I feel like it's hard to guess. It's a hard one, but maybe you could go for like one.
I don't know.
It just goes for some baby Nintendo slop.
Mario
I can tell you this
64, Mario Party, Mario versus Rabbits, Legend of Zelda.
Versus Rabbit. There's no Legend of Zelda in there, but there's 2 Nintendo games that are
Mario
also
Kart.
in my top 5. Yes, yeah. The Mario Kart 8, not Mario Kart Deluxe, the one on the Wii U, not the one on the Switch, is my favorite though. I feel like that was a really perfect, compact game. Once they added all of the DLC courses, there's a lot of like really bad stuff in there as well. But that's in there. And
my
then the other
games
one
didn't save.
Oh, you didn't put it in? I was about to start looking for you on the site.
What did I put? I put Red Dead Redemption 2, The Witcher 3, Alan Wake 2, Last of Us Part 1, and what else what was the 5th one that I put? I think I put down Metal Gear. No, I didn't put down
Candy
Metal Gear
Crush.
5. Yes, Candy Crush. That was it. Yeah. Definitely Candy Crush.
Candy.
Fuck, I love crushing candies.
Now, I actually would have guessed Metal Gear Solid, but I don't even know if we ever talked about it. I don't know if Shadow of the Colossus or something like that would make it into your top 5.
I think it was Shadow of the Colossus. No, I can't remember.
I'll take that as a win.
Because that's like another game that I'm replaying at the moment because it's got that same feeling that I'm looking for.
Well, I do have The Last of Us in there, Mario Kart 8. The other Nintendo game is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which I think is the greatest 2D platformer I've ever played. I also have, as my all-time favorite, I do have Terraria, because it's just a game I have the most hours in. I love that game. I haven't played it in years, but I have like 300 hours locked in that. And I've lost all of the access to my characters and stuff like that, unfortunately, but I played that for quite a while. And then Throwback, I've been watching way more videos of it and really remembered how much I played Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and how much of a perfect game that is. Just for what you can do. It's so much fun. So yeah, those are my 5, but I gotta do some more gaming. Anyways, I also watched some stuff. Hopefully, finally get to our review. We don't want to make this this episode too long. So I'm gonna keep it brief. Something that dropped on Sundance, but also while it was at Sundance, it's also dropped on Netflix, so you can go see it right now. Is The Greatest Night in Pop, which basically tells the story of how they made the We Are the World video and how they brought together all of these 46 music icons in 1985. And I think it's a really stunning story to tell. I think the ultimate story about it is the most intriguing part. And I feel like you always got to separate how the documentary filmmaking is different from the story that it's telling. Is it just a compelling story, or is it actually a good documentary? And I feel like it doesn't really matter here if the assembly isn't great, because you also have limited access. But that's also part of the story, how thrown together this is to make this somehow work. And when they basically have one night where they're all there and get them all on the same page. And it's interesting to see someone like Bob Dylan be extremely anxious about singing and fitting in a way where maybe his tone doesn't really work with the song, but they gotta make it work somehow. Someone drops out, and then another guy has to step in, but he has to sing higher than he's comfortable with, and you can see it kind of. And then you have the interviews after the fact. It's just a neatly thrown together documentary overall, and I found it quite entertaining to watch. So yeah, if you care about, I guess, 80s musicians, then go give it a spin. I think it's worth your time. And then I do have a couple of films that are not worth checking out. I.S.S, International Space Station, is what that's short for. Is a movie that I think came out last... did it come out last year, or was it like this year? I think it was this year, but it only came out in the States, but it's already out to rent right now, rent and buy on Amazon, and like just digitally. It has the tensions of like we got these Russians and Americans. They both have 3 of each in the International Space Station, and then war breaks loose down on Earth, and basically both of them get a mission to basically take control of the space station, and then alliances are drawn, not in the sand, because sand would float in a zero gravity in space, but it's so coarse, and maybe you'll choke on it. It's not good. I think this film has an interesting premise, but it's just executed in a pretty boring way. Ariana DeBose plays the lead character, and I think she isn't really given much with her character. It's not really intriguing, and yeah, it ultimately plays pretty it just goes down the expected route. Certain appeal, it's morbid, but also kind of an appeal for some kind of overarching humanity, but I don't know. I found it kind of lackluster. I can't recommend it. And then the same goes for, biopics. If they go straight the round of, let's pick a popular song or event that's central to like the person, the musician, and then we just like it's their name and then an album or a song or whatever. At the end there, you get really formulaic. There's exceptions to that rule. There's also some bright spots in these films, but usually they are really just like so by the numbers. Like you could tell the story if you know the Wikipedia page exactly, like beat by beat, what they're probably gonna do. And Bob Marley One Love feels that way. And it was really underwhelming. I also wasn't sold on Kingsley Ben-Adir as Bob Marley. It just kind of stuck out. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I feel like it's still a solidly put together film. Like, I don't hate it. I don't think it's horrible. There's definitely like worse versions of biopic-y movies about musicians, but it also didn't move me in the slightest. It was a bit of a bore, but yeah, if you're really interested in Bob Marley, then maybe go give it a try. Lachlan, you listen to reggae?
Not my. No. Well, I listen to Bob Marley songs. Like there are some that are in my playlist that come through, but I don't actively listen to reggae. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's so homophobic.
I will just continuously listen to my T Swift albums. Thank you.
Yeah. Midnights is what I'm spinning. Did you hear she's doing a new album?
Yeah, the Poets Tortured.
Is it? Yeah.
Blade.
Hellblade.
Helldivers.
Helldivers 2. She'll be on Helldivers 3.
I have no idea what it's called. It's digital. Like Poet Tortured.
Yeah, I also don't know what it's called. Oh man, that's 2 shoutouts in one episode for Taylor Swift.
T Swift.
If you do it a third time, the Swifties are gonna get assembled. Yeah. It's like Beetlejuice. Anyways, let's talk about the main review of the week, American Fiction, the feature debut from Cord Jefferson, and the 5-time Oscar-nominated film now that is poking fun at the industry. So kind of a fun comparison in there. We'll definitely get into that. But yeah, Lachlan, what's the story about? Thelonious
Monk Ellison writing career has stalled because his work isn't deemed, in quotations, black enough. Monk, a writer and English professor, writes a satirical novel under the pseudonym aiming to expose the publishing world's hypocrisies. The book's immediate success forces him to get deeper, enmeshed in his assumed identity, and challenges his closely held worldviews.
Okay, what a well put together logline synopsis that is definitely not written by AI, I'd say.
Yeah,
it's so
definitely
original.
not.
Like, I'm actually not. I don't think this is written by AI.
It's a very long logline. I feel like the logline could stop at exposing the publishing world's hypocrisies, because then I feel like the rest of it is his entire story character arc. So not to spoil it, but that's basically like story.
That is it.
There's not so much mystery.
Which I think is not really what this movie is concerned with ultimately. I feel like it pokes the nuances in this really simple premise that if you do it broad, then it doesn't really work. You do have to get into the nitty-gritty, and you do get all of those contradictions that hopefully like beautifully come out and blossom when your central character isn't like the ideal force of what you're trying to just put across, but he also lives in all of the contradictions. And I think that it's what it's doing pretty solidly. It's also like very entertaining. That's why it also worked for a lot of audiences at Toronto International Film Festival in TIFF, where it had its world premiere, and then actually got the audience, the People's Choice Award, which, by the way, often correlates with big, at least Best Picture nomination success. I think Green Book was one of the films that was nominated that year at TIFF that ended up, for some reason, winning the Best Picture award. But it's been received quite positively so far with the theatrical run that it's had and the festival run. Now it's out on streaming, not on a streaming service, but you can go rent it and buy it digitally. And then on March 8th, it will be on MGM Plus, which I didn't know existed, but I assume because Amazon Prime bought MGM, that at some ways you should probably have access to that if you're a Prime subscriber. I wouldn't know. It's MGM, if you didn't know, got bought by Amazon. But yeah, audience score for it on Letterboxd is a 3.8, on IMDb a 7.7, and on Metacritic an 88. So across the whole board and the spectrum, we can see that most people actually did enjoy this quite a bit. It was made for less than $10 million and has already made $17 million so far in the box office alone. And I can tell you, I don't know if it's in your market in Australia. I actually didn't check, but I think it's only out in the States. I don't think it's even getting a Swiss release date. At least there's no one confirmed, and I don't know if it's getting distribution here. Do you know if it's out anywhere?
No, it's out. It's out.
Well, good to know. It's like the English markets, the Australians and the British sometimes do get that extra release date that some of the other European countries and other continents are not getting. But I'm glad it's out on VOD, so we can talk about it now. And the review will also be at a point that we indicated, full of spoilers, like filled to the brim. You could... So many spoilers, you can't even imagine it. It got nominated for 5 Oscars, right? Namely for lead actor, supporting actor, best score, adapted screenplay, and best picture. So 5 nominations overall. And it's based on the 2001 book Erasure from Percival Everett. That's why it's adapted screenplay. And it's called Jefferson's first debut feature film, but he's written, produced, been worked as a, not contractor, but what do you say, like someone who helps out with the script writing. I don't know, I'm in this really literacy heavy film. I'm actually like lacking the proper English language, but he's written for Master of None, The Good Place, Succession, Watchmen, and Station 11. So a vast filmography or discography. What do you call it when it's just on TV? Is it also a filmography? That's a question for another day. I feel like it's
Teography.
Well, that feels like it's the character Colin Firth in After Yang. I feel like he has a T defaulted.
Yep.
Anyways, let's talk about American Fiction and how much you like it. I don't really know yet. I know I've talked about it before because I've seen it a while ago, had a bit of a rewatch of certain scenes, but didn't rewatch the whole thing. But yeah, what did you make of it? Did it work for you? Or not, I guess.
I didn't mind it. I actually had a pretty good time. I enjoyed Monk, the character, more than anything else. I found him to be just as much of a hypocrite as the writing industry would say it is. So I found it quite entertaining. I had a great time, honestly. I think that the narrative itself is strong. I think the way that characters evolve are quite interesting, and how they're introduced are quite interesting, and the world around them. Let's just say that these characters feel the most realistic of any film that I've watched recently. Like, I feel like these characters are actively seeking things that they would seek in real life. I feel like, yes, the closeted gay brother who's now out, who does seem to be over the top, Sterling K. Brown plays him.
Yeah.
Everything that he does, I'm like, yep, that seems on par. He's been a closeted gay for his entire life. Even especially after comments made by his mother, who is an elderly woman and would come from a background of not accepting someone part of that community in their life. That was interesting as well. And I was like, yeah, that would make sense. But she doesn't want to say that out loud to him. And it's not, I wouldn't say that came from her. It came from the illness that she has more than anything else.
Yeah, which brings the worst parts of someone to the forefront, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The studies on how dementia is like not just making you forget stuff, but actually like changing who you are as a person. Which, not that that's the case with her. I feel like there's underlying tension all of his life that Sterling K. Brown's character has there. But
it's the same with Monk himself. He is quite a stubborn individual. It's my way or the highway with him. So you don't really get to, I guess, argue with him. If you get into an argument, it's like, no, my opinion's the correct opinion and you can fuck off. Which is quite entertaining. And then I enjoyed how uncomfortable he got when he would put on that persona of what was it, Stag Ali, his pseudonym that he went under. I enjoyed how uncomfortable he was talking as a quote unquote black man to white people. In that voice that he puts on. I found that super interesting. So there are a lot of elements that I enjoy in this film, and I feel like the satire of it is it's quite dry. You've really got to read between the lines to find the humor in it, because it's not really jokes. It's how things are quite over the top and how they're presented, and the situations that they're put in are quite comedic in that kind of way. But no, I had a great time.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, total comparison, different film that also does like the voice over the phone thing concept in a way in Sorry to Bother You with Lakeith Stanfield, where he puts on like the white voice to be like less, I don't know, that like people who call feel less threatened by his blackness. And like that really goes into like the fully satirical side of what you could do with a premise of confronting these underlying racial tensions where they clash with like how outwardly maybe woke and understanding white people are, when it's ultimately just like it's some sort of weird fabrication loop where it's like a self patting on your shoulder of like, hey, this is doing well. And I feel like when it pokes fun at that, it is doing that in a really, really funny way. It doesn't feel just like taking the piss out of every single situation. But for me, it does make kind of big jumps from making more of the effort to be more of a satire back to a family drama, and juggling those two themes for most of the part. I think it does it well. I don't think it sticks the landing ultimately when it kind of wants to go back and forth. But I've seen some criticisms of just the family part that's like isn't working. It's not good. But I feel like it's actually like some of the best moments come from all of the family drama, which to me is like a really interesting thing as well, because it's like one of the things that he makes fun of, that these media things for white people to be accepted and like get these accolades do have to hit certain expectations that you have for black people. And then you struggle with like substance abuse and poverty and all of that. And if you look closely in the family story, that is another through line that Monk's character goes through. And it also has like the romantic parts, and like all of the stuff is kind of set up to ultimately just contradict itself all the way through. But it also makes like a bunch of really good points. And spoilers here for a specific scene that happens later on, when there's a confrontation between him and Issa Rae about like the book that he really looks down on, which is like in some ways the book Fuck that he writes, like a rebellion act out of spite that he creates. And when he confronts her about like actually not liking her book because he feel like it's reductive and exploitative, she has some pretty good points that she throws back at him, because it doesn't feel like a clean-cut issue that you can say this is right, this is wrong, which makes it that much more interesting that this movie also isn't interested in ultimately arriving at a point where it tells you this is the opinion of the writer, author, whatever, and that's what we're going for. It feels more like, let's just look at this because it's complex, look at this mess. Also has a lot of fun moments in between, some sad moments as well. To me, I thought this was like a really well-rounded movie from the direction, but especially from the writing and the performances.
Let's talk about what it's nominated for really quickly. There's a few Oscars. There's adapted screenplay. You've got lead supporting from Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown, and you've got best score and picture also in those ones as well. So we'll start off with the two actors, Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown. Now, I don't know if you saw that clip of Sterling K. Brown on that talk show, but he's kind of like, I'm not going to win, but it's great to be nominated. Thank you. Which I found quite adorable. And I agree. I don't think that in this particular race, he doesn't really have a foot in it. I think that there are definitely going to be, is it definitely going to be somebody else who's going to win?
Yeah.
But I think that Jeffrey Wright actually puts on a pretty damn good performance.
Yeah, I think both performances are definitely like worth nominating. They're really strong. Tie back to something I said earlier, that video that I watched from Dan Murrell about the Oscars. He also proposed something that I find really good, is the way that they used to do the Oscars post the Dark Knight drama, where they basically extended it to a certain percentage that the movie got, and then it got nominated. So we got not just 5 nominees, but sometimes 8, sometimes 9. And if you cap it, he proposed like at 8, but you get the minimum of 5. And it's basically by percentages. If someone gets like more than 10% of the vote, you get in. And I feel like then you would get rid of these like marginal calls where people don't get in, where it's really like, it's so small, assumingly, because they never go public of why someone gets nominated, why someone doesn't. But they are among like the best written characters of the year, but also the like best performed ones. Jeffrey Wright really brings the energy, like the perfect energy for this character. Like I believed him every single second he was on screen. And it's not an easy character to play, because you could so easily get frustrated with him to a point where you just feel like he's obnoxious and you don't give a shit about him. But I always cared about like his struggle, even if I wasn't on his side or on his argument 100% of the time. And Sterling K. Brown has more of that like an outgoing rage, that spite that is still kind of there, like a lot of tension that he has to play with. And from his previous roles, I don't know in what else you've seen him in, but he's so great at portraying that. To me, it feels like this is an overdue recognition of a type of character that he plays really well. Like he played the dad character in Waves, and he was really great in that. I'm happy these two got nominated, even if it means that Charles Melton didn't get in. But yeah.
Sterling K. Brown is a phenomenal actor. I have seen him in a number of different things, and even at the worst of those movies, he is still really strong. He's a fantastic performer, and I agree. I don't think that he's going to win over Downey, unfortunately, but I think that, in all honesty, I think that he's got I would still put him over. Who else was nominated for this one? Supporting
Mark Ruffalo as well. I feel like he's probably like above him when it goes to the amount of votes.
I still think he did a better job than De Niro in Killers of a Flower Moon. I think De Niro's just got like the pity nominee of just being like, he did a good thing, get him in there. I think that Ryan Gosling his performance is quite over the top for Barbie, but I still think that Cliff, the character, is still super afraid of the world, and Sterling kind of still demonstrates that. And I think that he is over the top. He's unpredictable, but he's also so afraid. And he also says one of the my favorite line of the film, where it's like, "This family will break your heart," or whatever. And it's like, that came out of nowhere, and it's delivered so well, and you can just feel the emotion behind it. With Jeffrey Wright, he's fantastic. He's been in so many films recently, and it's not even been like big films, like big roles,
and not
I should
lead
say.
roles,
Like,
right? Yeah.
yeah. French Dispatch, he was in that. No Time to Die. He plays Gordon in the Batman, and I felt like he did a great job of that. I remember first sort of being introduced to Jeffrey Wright in the first season of Westworld. That's where I first kind of like locked onto him, because I found his performance incredible. And then as I went like through like film, like just watching movies, like I found him in like all of these. Like I was like, oh, he's in the Bond movies. I was like, no way. He's in Ali. He's in a whole bunch of different films that I've seen, and just like, oh, he just, to see him in a lead role is fantastic, because he is such a strong performer, and he knows how to give energy, and the energy he gives, even though, as you said, is quite, it's just fine tuned to that perfect level where it's not over the top, it's not crazy, but it's just perfect. So yeah.
No, what I find really compelling about his character is that like he's someone who's not really good at saying the things in between. He has to be really literal with like solving his stuff. He wants to get it out there with his words. He can't really do the emotion in between, which is like where he struggles to connect with Sterling K. Brown, with his brother and with his family, and it's also where his shortcomings are coming from when he tries to pursue a relationship. And I feel like that's like also another really sort of stereotype for these like hyper-focused artistic people who are focused on especially like the literary medium, because it feels like it is a bit more like high-nose shit with that type of stuff. And then like him going down is like a discomfort, like you said, for him, because he doesn't want to be a part of that. Like I think there's like really good scenes in there where he gets mad at a guy at the bookstore because his books are under black literature when it has nothing to do with him being black, but just because he is black, it's part of black literature. And that sort of stuff. I like that. That's like another through line for the film. Like, are you ultimately really constrained by your race when it's only like there's the false maybe perception of like freedom of storytelling, but ultimately you are limited to sort of these type of stories, and the movie even ends with that as they like ride out of the lot, and as he basically fucks off and gives like a dumb ending that they ultimately like go with in the movie version of this film. There's a guy on a break, and he's like dressed as a slave, and he gives them the peace sign, and they ride out, and like that. I feel like it's really a good way to end it. But ultimately, what do you think about a film that is clearly like so? I wouldn't say it's like big anti-establishment or anything, or it tries to be like super counterculture, or like, oh, you could never nominate this, but it ultimately gets nominated. Does it lesser the points that it's trying to make, or do you think it doesn't really take away from what it's going for?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think that it's kind of funny that it's the only.
It's like, fuck you, Hollywood. It's like, oh, you guys, come in here. We got a couple of golden statues.
Only movie with a black lead? No, you got black lead. Yes.
Color Purple did get, I think, a couple of acting nominations.
I'm looking at Best Picture, but like it's the only.
Yeah.
And then if we go actor, like Rustin's Colin Domingo's in there, so Rustin's got that vote. But like, yeah, it is funny that it's included in like all of these praises, because it's, that's kind of what it's like talking about. It's like this story.
Yeah.
So it gets even meta with that. But I feel like the film doesn't suffer from
Similar
that at all.
to
I think
Triangle of
great.
Sadness, right? I feel like
Yeah.
that's also like poking fun, and like they ate it up in Gun. They really loved it, but it was clearly making fun of like that type of that type of like
World.
social standing. Yeah, that world, yeah. It makes it like, I don't know, it just makes it a really interesting topic that I lack like additional info, additional input to give. I feel like it really stands alone as its own. Big on spoilers though, what do you think about the way that they approach the writing process? That's another like stand-up moment where he like visualizes it, especially because you are like in the process of writing something. That's my first question. The second one would be, what do you think about the endings?
Well, it's interesting because we spoke about this last week. How do you write something? How do you write something? And for me, that's what I do. I picture it, I imagine it, I voice them, I talk them, I block it in my head, and physically as well. So I wish there was more of that. I wish there was more of that writing process, because I would have loved to see his writing process go from his writing into this pseudonym writing, and then evolve into that and watch the characters change of what sells in the writing space. And then as for the ending, I'm on two sides of the fence with this one, because initially I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, how they gonna do that, but I wish it didn't come so left wing out of nowhere. I wish there was more of that, where they changed the story, chop and change the story of how it was written, what actually happened, what they want to happen, like give the real story, the fictional story, and then the what everyone wants to happen, right? And I really enjoyed the ending. I did. I found it interesting. I found it funny. I thought it was a great way of ending it on that dramatic note. And then obviously that little moment at the end with the actor in the slave costume. But I felt that chop and change ending was enjoyable, and it was a great light-hearted way to end the film. But because there was none of that throughout it, I just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, and I wish it didn't do that. I wish it just like threw out.
Yeah, it's like its biggest thing is that it wants to make fun of them going for the obvious, what he sees obvious bait content, like that type of book, and adapting it onto the screen is a whole different beast, and that is kind of shoehorned and tacked at the end to like make it more ridiculous, the quick success it's getting. I feel like you could have capped it at that one meeting he has in the cafe where he runs out on the guy or something like that, if I remember correctly. I feel like that scene was pretty solid, like all of that. I don't know if you need to tie it into the movie that you're making now, where you poke fun at the thing. Like, it gets really meta, which is interesting, but it's not the main focus of the story. I feel like it ultimately is really interested in the complexities of and the richness and like the different diversity within culture, be it black or be it white. I don't know, it doesn't really matter racially in between, the like how layered like ogres it is, and yeah, even if they're green. But yeah, the movie ending with like a cut to black and okay, we got a bunch of notes here. You do need to make that a bigger focus if you want to end on that, if you want to earn that like straight up funny ending. Because like it hits you with stuff pretty out of left field. Like you get Tracy Ellis Ross, right, the sister. She's introduced 15 minutes in, she's just dead out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, I thought this was like a main character that's gonna be in the film the whole time. She's like incredible for the time she's on screen. Even when she's not on screen, her not eulogy thing, but like address to the people at a funeral. It's just, I think it balances tone. Like it goes from, this is sad. Within that, there's these other emotions she can poke fun at. Like hopefully she died under Idris Elba. On a lesser note, if it's not as great, then it was like what is it, Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe,
yeah. And then like a guy comes up and is like, do you have the permit for putting your ashes into the ocean? And like it goes straight back to like heavy topics to comedy. And I think for that, because it does need to take big swings, it works more often than not. And yeah, I actually ended up liking it really, really, really well. It almost, Lachlan, cracked into my top 10 from last year. And it technically is in the top 10 if you exclude Hitman, which hasn't come out yet outside of festivals. It's my number 11. My ratings-wise, I gave it a 4.5. I really liked it.
Damn.
I don't know if on a rewatch, because I couldn't do a proper rewatch, and I felt like maybe I'd come down on it a bit, to like a 4. So it's like closer to a 4 than it is to a 5. But yeah, 4.5 as it stands right now, until I update it. But yeah, what about you, Lachlan?
Damn, that's pretty high.
Yeah. No, I just really vibed with it. I found it really funny. It made me laugh like quite a bit.
I enjoyed it. As I said, the performances were great. Narratively, I thought it was fun as well. For me, I feel like the film does have its imperfections, and I wasn't fully engaged with it. I was never just engulfed, which is what I kind of want, but I can appreciate the film quite a bit.
Yeah.
For myself, I'm gonna land. I was at 4, but I'm now making it a 3.5. I'm at a 3.5. Don't hate me.
That's why I'm staying at a 4.5. So like balances out at a 4, which is
balances out at a 4. But yeah, am I at a 4? I'm at 3.5, 4. When I log it, it'll have my final like score on it, and then we'll go from that.
I feel like ultimately, I don't think people are too cut up of what we rate something, but it's worth checking out. It's like, I don't think this year has a Best Picture 10 of a film that I say don't see, which is a great year to have. Like, maybe the weakest one you can make the argument is maybe Maestro, but that one's like I liked even, like, and there's good stuff about it. So it's it's a good year for film. And
Speaking
if I were to pair it up,
how many more movies do you have to see for the to see all the Oscar films?
Oh, I think I haven't gotten further into that. Like, I haven't made progress on that at all. I've just been too sick to watch, but I'll catch up on a couple more of them. But if you were to pair it this one up with another film, Lachlan, I do have a good one for this week, which maybe doesn't really tie into the film, but
I haven't thought of one yet, but I'm just gonna do it on the fly. So
as always,
this film is about the writing process. I could do, what was that film that we talked about just earlier? Similar films. You People.
The similar films.
Tenenbaums, Big Sick.
It's really bad. I looked at it.
God.
It's so bad.
Those are terrible films that are like.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with it.
Oh my God, this is the worst. This is actually really funny.
Yeah, right. I had a good laugh at how bad the recommended movies are for this as well.
They recommend Click. Man, that's a stretch. It's a stretch.
It's also what the funniest thing is that like something like Bamboozled is here. I haven't seen that one, but just from its reputation, bringing it back to Spike Lee.
What was the other one? The one that came out just with Black Klansman.
Sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother you.
That's a good pick.
That's a fun one. You should watch Sorry to Bother You as your double feature with this. It's Boots Riley. It's a lot of dumb fun. If you're looking for a ridiculous satire, watch that as well. You'll if you want to watch like a very calm satire, American Fiction. If you want, don't do it on acid. Something even crazier. You should watch Sorry to Bother You.
It's got good girth. That's all I'll say.
Good girth.
Good girth. Which, if I were to take this more seriously this week, I definitely could have gone with that one as well. It's a great pick, but because Madam Web is coming out, it's often been in the background for a while because Lachlan does own it on Blu-ray, maybe even 4K Blu-ray. What a waste. Morbius is overdue for a rewatch because Madam Web looks to maybe even be worse or on par to match how horrible Morbius was. I remember seeing that movie at a press screening and immediately like wanting to give it a 5-star rating. I did, and as soon as I hit publish on Letterboxd, I got pop-up an email. It's like, hey, here's the embargo. Please respect the embargo. I was like, fuck, I have it rated on Letterboxd. And I couldn't figure out how to unrate it. It still showed up when I updated and I deleted it. It still showed on Letterboxd, like one of the only ratings for the film was a 0.5 star by me, and it wouldn't go away for a while. So I'm sorry, Sony Pictures. Maybe I was the actual reason that Morbius didn't do well, because the early thoughts on it that were leaked were really bad. But maybe I can do it better with Madam Web, which, by the way, I'll probably be in a screening for it as you are watching this. It's unlikely because it's a small time window, but maybe you're the lucky guy. Anyways, there's a couple of new releases that are coming out, namely the much anticipated Madam Web, part of the expanded Spider-Man universe that gets 3 new movies this year. Madam Web, Venom, free? There's 3 Venom movies, and Kraven the Hunter. There's also Bob Marley, One Love. I can't say I recommend that one. And then The Iron Claw, a movie that got shut out, unfortunately, at the Oscars. A heavy film is coming out on VOD, and that's the film that we'll be talking about next week. Then, already out in limited release, is the sequel to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's getting a sequel. It's looking actually way better, which is like, okay, than the first one. Not that it looks good. It just looks better than the original, which you could fart on a piece of film and project that over 2 hours, and it probably would be better than that first film. Hey, here goes nothing. I guess once that hits digital, I'll give it a try as well, because, again, it's only out in limited release in the States. The Oscar shorts also should be out in limited release in the States. And then Io Capitano, after being the Italian submission and surprisingly getting into the final 5 for the international Oscar, is getting a run in theaters as well. You should check your local markets. I know for me in Switzerland, we did already play it back in October, but we are having it again in March, just in anticipation of the Oscars. So it's likely that maybe if it already played and you missed it, that you can go see it somewhere, and it should be available digitally sooner than later, and we'll make note of that. And I think, Lachlan, for you, The Dry 2 is out, or is it already out?
It's
What's
already
up with
out.
that? Have you kept... Oh, okay.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to go see it. But there's so many films to catch up on, and such little time. I want to watch The Dry, and then I've got to watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, at least 30 films for the Oscar stuff, and most of those are international shorts, documentaries. Like that's
Okay.
all they are. It's pretty much all of the international 1, 2, 3, 2 international, 3, 4, or pretty much all of the
Shorts.
animated.
I don't know if
all
you-
of the shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got so much to catch up on, and we're gonna do
So much to do, so little time.
a Denis Villeneuve bracket, so I've got to catch up on some of the other ones that I haven't seen like billions of times. So like Arrival,
and
I have
ready,
to rewatch
hot
that,
and ready
Enemy.
for Dune 2. Yeah, we'll definitely keep you posted on that. But yeah, we'll have to watch a whole bunch of Villeneuve this one month, and I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, to not miss reviews and podcasts every week, and that upcoming Villeneuve bracket. And will also be, well, I was about to say the first, but I guess not the first. I guess I even can't talk about it. I almost got to see Dune 2. I can say it at the very end of this episode. It was on the heavy embargo and NDA. I signed none of it, so I feel like I can kind of say that I almost saw it, but I didn't see it because I got so horribly sick that I couldn't go. But even with I had 39 degrees fever, and my doctor said that like I had an inflammatory factor of 20-fold the time that would already register as like having an infection or something like that, or being inflamed. So I had no way of going to see Dune, but I was so close to saying, fuck it, I see it anyways. So we're very much in anticipation of that film, and we'll be chatting about it probably for all year after. That's just how great we make it up to be. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint. Hyping it up so much and that it's just a letdown, we couldn't handle that. But yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching, and yeah, we'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.